Well, I've been asked to give a presentation on ARES this afternoon, and I am not going to talk about the Greek god of war, who is also known as Ares. Mine is going to be related to amateur radio. First question people usually ask is, what is ARES? It's an acronym, stands for Amateur Radio Emergency Service. And I want to emphasize the point that it's a service. There's a lot of words here that people can look at if they want, but basically what it is a association of licensed amateur radio operators who intend to commit to helping out in times of a disaster and an emergency. And we do a number of things to do that. Just a quick history. Amateur Radio Emergency Service was established, the fledgling group was established in around 1935 by the ARRL, that's the Amateur Radio Relay League, and they are the United States National Organization for Amateur Radio. So they kind of established the rules and regulations and requirements for an ARES. The last count that I saw for the United States was something on the order of 70,000 members as were ARES members. Here in Box Elder County, there are roughly 64 people, licensed amateur radio operators, that have said that they would be committed to helping us in a time of emergency or disaster. That's not to say other amateur radio operators won't, but these are the people that have stepped up and registered to do that. We do have an organizational structure, although we are not really an organization or a club. We are, probably the best way to describe it would be an association of licensed amateur radio operators that intend to commit to helping. There are the organization as we have it in most of the states there is a state emergency coordinator. And for Utah, that's a fellow named Brett Pruitt. Under him, there's usually an emergency coordinator for local communities, primarily counties in the state of Utah. I'm the emergency coordinator. I should have introduced myself. I'm D. Dostler. My call is W7DEE, and I'm the emergency coordinator for Box Elder County. Under me, and under the other ECs, there are associated emergency coordinators. These are people that have said that they would come and help if for some reason I was incapacitated, missing, or whatever. I've got 3 or 4, I'm sorry?
Or on vacation.
Or on vacation, could be out of the town, out of the county, couldn't get to the thing, could be at work. There's a number of reasons why the emergency coordinator may not be able to get here, although I'm retired, so retired twice as a matter of fact, so I should be able to be available. But I could be down in Ogden, could be down in Salt Lake, anywheres, and I'm not able to get up here to whatever emergency is happening. One of these 4 fellows can stand up and start the process of getting the ARES Association going. So what do we basically do? The intent for ARES is to be able to provide auxiliary communication, AUXCOM, to whoever it needs to be whenever it needs to be. We do not step into whatever service is required ourselves. We are usually an organization that'll be requested, and that's usually done by the emergency manager for the county. That'll be Mark Millett. He will decide whether he needs us or not, whether the regular communication lines that are established for the various services, fire, hospital, or whatever, cannot function right now, then we'll step in and provide that communication for them. Having said that, if there is an emergency or disaster, we do have a protocol that we will put into place to start a net for the emergency operation through the licensed amateur radio operators. This is done independent of whatever communication is being done. It's a in case it's needed sort of operation. And we'll establish this protocol. Whoever is able to, firstly, will become the net control operator, the net control station, and try and bring in all the rest of the amateur licensed radio people that may be available to help out. Once he has all that information, then we just stand by and wait in case we're needed. If we're needed, Mark Millett or the current manager or whoever the incident commander is will call for us to come and help out and provide communications for whoever. So here's a quick sequence of events. Generally, officially, we'll be requested to provide communications by the county emergency manager. Whoever is the EC or AEC at that time will probably go to the emergency ops center to find out what is needed and what's required. At that point, we'll stand by until we're actually needed and dispensed to wherever we need to be. Let's see. At that point, we'll also stand by and or provide service, whatever is needed, as long as it's needed by the emergency coordinator. Let me grab a couple of pieces of paper here so I can figure out where I'm at. Screen's a little small to see, so I want to make sure that I let people know what it is we're doing. Okay, moving on, and here's a recap of what we do. Essentially, we're a service organization. I emphasize the word service because we're not a group, we're not a club. We're a service that's provided under the ARRL and also under the Federal Communication Commission rules and regulations. We'll be called out. We don't try to initiate things by ourselves, so we're asked to provide that communication if it's necessary to do so by the organization. Their communication system may not work. Cell phones, their radios, their laptops, whatever, may not function. What we'll do is set up what we'll call an emergency operations center, but it's basically a net control station where we're controlling the licensed amateur radio operators, where they go and what they're expected to do. In the meantime, we'll be checking on what are their requirements, what they need to do, and provide for that logistical support. And as I said, provide the communications as requested. And once we're done, we'll conduct a learning session at the end to find out what worked, what went well, and what, more importantly, what doesn't work well, what failed, so we can improve the system and our training as we go. So how do we establish a station? When we hear about the disaster, an unofficial communication or a situation, we'll set up our own protocol, which we have, to start a net control station going and to start finding out which licensed amateur radio operators are available to be dispersed to where they're needed. After that, we stand by and wait for the emergency manager of the county, Mark Millett, to let us know whether we're required or not. If we are, he'll be the one that'll authorize for us to go and start doing what we are doing. The net control station, or I should say the emergency station, will be at various places in the county. We've established, through the generosity of the emergency manager, at least 10 stations within the county, 10 radio systems. That's the antenna radios and all the equipment that's needed to put a station together on at least 10 of the cities in the county. Unfortunately, it does not include Brigham City, Perry, or Willard. They have their own setups that they're taking care of. However, we are in communication with them and help them as best we can to set up a station for themselves as well. Once the licensed operator...
Just a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's not on? Hold on. I'll turn it on so it's clear. You know, just... There we go. Anyway, this is being picked up on the recording now, hopefully. For Brigham City and Perry and those that you talked about that have their own systems, are they similar or enough so that we can work with them?
For Brigham City and Perry, for certain. Willard Station, I believe, as well.
Okay.
We talk to those people all the time. We've talked to the emergency manager in Perry. Through our discussions, we've established a particular room and have checked out their radio system as well. Willard is doing their own, but with Brigham City, we've been dealing with Kay Kelly. We've gone in and looked at all of the radios that they're planning on using and checked their antenna system out, etc.
Okay.
So while we are not officially including them as part of one of those cities, they are one of the cities, and we are ready to help them if they want to as well. One of the things that we are doing is putting in a digital packet system that'll allow us to transmit forms from the station to the Emergency Operations Center at the Sheriff's facility. And we are continually testing that out to make sure it functions as it's supposed to. But it uses the FEMA forms, the ICS forms, and the idea is to reduce as much as possible any errors in the transmission. In the past, when a radio operator was given a form, he would have to communicate it via voice to whoever was the radio operator in the emergency ops center. And that was fraught with error. If, say, a hospital needed 14 beds and to supplement themselves, and the operator tried to say 14, the guy that recorded said 4, we run into a problem. That's especially a problem when you're talking about medications and those sorts of things. So there are ICS forms now that the people on a particular incident can fill out, and we can transmit that form to the Emergency Operations Center. So what do we expect of our amateur radio operators? First thing is, of course, you probably have heard, we need to make sure that they've taken care of any safety issues, their families are safe, and so on and so forth. We don't want them going out there, and they could be out there for a period of 8, 10, 12 hours. We don't want them worrying about what's happening with their people back home. So that's the first thing we want them to do. And we also expect them to train and study and gather as much information as they can to operate the amateur radio system. What kind of technology do we use? We have voice. That's the normal method of transport, where we're talking over the radio from one radio to another, or radio to a repeater. And I just mentioned this packet system where we're able to transmit forms that are filled out so that we can accurately make sure the information goes from one place to another. We do have repeaters. There's 4 of them in the county. They're maintained by the Golden Spike Amateur Radio Club. And if we need to, those are our primary method for getting information from one place to another. Should they not be out, we still can communicate via radio-to-radio communication. Other things we can do and might need are GPS systems, or what they call APRS, which is an automated tracking system for various officials. And of course, the amateur radio operators themselves have to maintain a whole suite of equipment. And the operators' experience can range from a newbie, a person just licensed and may just have a handheld, to people with computers and all kinds of radios, antenna systems they can deploy, etc. And that's basically what I wanted to communicate this afternoon. So are there any more questions or comments or anything of that nature that I can address while I'm here? None? Well, thank you all very much. As many as we have. Appreciate it.